What's up, my good people? We're back at it again with another edition of the Talking College Ball podcast. My boy LaFaro. It is Miami Hurricanes breakdown week.
Let's go.
We're another step closer to college football being here. We're literally a week away after this week to having week 0 Florida State Seminoles. So this is the final breakdown of our big three that we discuss, our local teams, the Gators, Noles, and Canes. So like I say, we are here to bring you the 2024 Miami Hurricanes breakdown preview, whatever you want to call it. You know, I had to don my boy Cooney, a part of the Miami Hurricane staff down there, hooked me up with this a couple years ago, the throwback Ibis, you know. So I was like, you know, it's fitting for me to rock a little Hurricanes. I won't rock the garnet and gold ever, unless, like I told you earlier, unless they want to cut me a check for some reason. Or
yeah, I'm sure somebody's going to say, why you didn't wear one last week?
I know. Well, I can say, first of all, I don't have anything. So, and then second of all, I mean, I'm sure I can get some gear from Ross or Kiwan or whatever. But, you know, again, putting that on, I don't know. That I got more respect for the Canes.
You might get disowned.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, like,
I guess that's a good thing.
This is fresh. This is fresh. You know, it's like it's got the old school. You know, so you know, I got hooked up. My boy, like I say, my boy Cooney always hooks me up with some gear whenever we go down to the 305. And like I say, it's good people's down there. I got nothing but love for the Canes. I got good respect for them. But
yeah, you say that now, week 1. I'm sure you'll be singing a different tune.
Oh yeah, screw you guys, F y'all. That's what I got to say. But now, I'll let you grab the bull by the horns here and give us your early thoughts on what you think. Obviously, a lot of new additions, a lot of exits. You know, we'll talk about some over/under on the wins total, like we've done in the past with the other two squads. You know, so it's basically, you know, what do you think is going to happen this year? What needs to happen this year? We've talked about hot seats for Billy. We'll talk about hot seat for Mario, expectations, you know, all that good stuff. So I guess give me your thoughts on your 2024 Miami Hurricanes, buddy.
Well, the seat is kind of warm down there in Coral Gables for the most part. I mean, I think it's Mario needs to win 9+ this season to get the people off his back down there. But I think he brought in enough talent to do that. Lost a little bit of talent, but I think we could do that. Losing James Williams and Cam Kitchens is a big blow to the secondary going in the draft, and then losing Leonard Taylor and Branson Dean at the D tackle position. But I think we've replaced the D-line positions for the most part. I like our chances this year. The schedule sets up pretty nice, you know, outside of the Florida game, the first couple games of the year.
Yeah, the schedule sets up nice.
You know, yeah, it really does. I mean, you know, with a new quarterback in Cam Ward coming in from Washington State, you like I say, you want the offense to get going right away, but that Florida game is going to be tough just because it's opening week and some new components to the offense. But I like I say, I like our chances against the Gators week 1, but we'll get into that in 2 weeks. But, you know, after that, you got FAMU, Ball State, South Florida. The South Florida game could be tricky just because of that up-tempo style they play down there in South Florida. Then you got Vautech at home. Then the long trip to Cal. Then you got Louisville, FSU, Duke, Tech, Wake, and you know, and at Syracuse. That's the schedule for the most part. And how you can't get 9 wins out of that, yeah. That's all I would say at the end of the year.
I guess that's why Vegas set the line at 9.5, which is obviously, like I say, right on. Yep. It's kind of like Vegas has it pegged, you know, to where it's like you got to get that extra 1 because I see 9 wins on that schedule too. So can you see 10? Yeah. You know, can you get 11? You know, I think the schedule ultimately breaks down, kind of like you say, perfectly for you guys to where the teams you're playing at home and on the road. You know, obviously week 1 that's going to be a tough one going to the Swamp. And here's the thing, even if you lose that game, I still think it sets up for you guys the way the schedule goes. You're going to roll off, you know, 4 wins right there. Then you get Virginia Tech, who's a faux fringe team that a lot of people are thinking is going to be good this year. Yeah. You get them at home. You don't have to go to Blacksburg. Cal, yes, that's a long road trip, but I don't think Cal's very good. Where I think the schedule might get tricky is a look ahead playing on the road at Louisville before Florida State, you know. But you still get, you know, a new year with Elko being gone against Duke. You know, Tech, Yeah, that game could be tricky.
That's the Manny Diaz Bowl, Sponge.
Right. Yeah. No, for sure. I forgot Manny's there. So there you go.
Yeah, Manny's there. So he's going to be geared up and
For
wanting to beat
sure.
the Canes,
Oh yeah.
especially at Hard Rock.
So that makes that a little fun. We talked
Mm-hmm.
about Georgia Tech playing, week 1 at Florida State. That's late in the year. So how does Georgia Tech season, pan out going on the road there late, in November or early November, but late in the season? And then, Wake hadn't been very good. And then our foe team that sets up with an easy schedule, Syracuse, what are they going to look like, final week of the season? I still think the Canes are better than them, obviously, but who knows, what teams look like by week 12 or 13.
But what's been the problem in the last couple of years, I could have said that about a lot of games. The Canes were better. And against a lot of teams, they were better than Georgia Tech. And then a bonehead coaching decision at the end of the game cost you the game. And I think that's been the MO on Mario for the last several years, even at Oregon. It's making bad decisions at the wrong time. And as a Canes fan sitting back and watching it, that's to me, that's going to be the key to the season. How does Mario and his coaching staff coach these games down the line? Time management. Are we just going to run the ball out, kneel the ball? Are we going to blitz on the wrong? I like Lance Guidry, but with that back end of the defense being the weak point of the defense is going to be it's going to be something to watch all season long. The front seven is going to be nice with everyone back, and then the incoming guys. But coaching has been his thing the last several years.
Well, yeah, like I said, we go back to last year. You had high expectations. You go in. The big game was week 2 against A&M, and the offense lights it up. Van Dyke goes crazy. The receivers go crazy. The defense plays well. You score almost 50. Then you get an easy game in Bethune and Temple. So now you're 4-0. You're feeling good. Then you don't take the knee against Georgia Tech, and it's like a blunder. And all of a sudden you lose that one. And then the next week you go on the road to North Carolina, and it's a game for about a half. And then the next thing you know, you get completely just lit up in the second half. But then you come back and actually have 2, tough, nail-biting double overtime and overtime wins against Clemson and Virginia. And then, you go on the road to NC State, our favorite place, Carter Finley, and you catch an L.
Because you can't score.
Yeah, it's just 20-6, man. Ugly game.
Well, then you remember that it was like 10-6 for the longest.
Yeah, that was such an ugly game.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Well, and the other person I want to question this year and see how it all pans out is Shannon Dawson. Last year coming out of that Texas A&M game, there was no way you could tell me they weren't going to average 30 points a game, 30, 40 points a game with TVD and those receivers. And then it was just like a regression. Like they just simplified the offense, and TVD couldn't even figure out the simplification of the offense. Like you're just sitting there like, dude, they're dropping 8, rushing 3. You got a running back in the left flat, a tight end in the right flat. Pick one. Even if they get 3 yards, at some point defenses are going to change their scheme up. But every defense after that Georgia Tech game just kept running the drop 8. I mean, they didn't change anything. Some of the looks, the throws he was making were crazy.
Yeah. And again, they even, turned around, the next 2 weeks and played, respectable ball against 2 of the top teams in the league in Florida State and Louisville. Those were the 2 teams that played for the ACC title. Yeah. They were in both of those ball games, lose by a touchdown in both of those. Then you close out winning, against Boston College. So in all retrospect, you look at it, you definitely don't blow that, Georgia Tech game. That's 8 wins for sure. And then, you sneak in one of those other wins where you don't play great. You're a 8-9 win season, a team. And, your outlook is different. Like we said, like with the Gators, if they would have won that game in Arkansas and not dropped it against, early in the year to Utah or something, they could have had, a different perspective on where the team is. So it's like, I still think both the Canes and the Gators are kind of on that trending trajectory where I think obviously Miami's got the better trajectory because the schedule sets up better. They got a ton of influx and nice talent like a Cam Ward and a Martinez. So it came from other programs that were like the best player at their position, the best player in the conference in a sense. Cam Ward with crazy numbers. Martinez has been a top back. So it's like those things is where, Miami, I think, is just a little bit ahead. So that's why that week 1 game is so important. But I still feel like, that you win a couple of those games last year, and you're feeling totally different. Like, yeah, we're ready. But I still feel like Miami is on the cusp of making that step, because I feel like there's a 3-team race in the ACC. I think it's obviously Florida State, Clemson, and Miami. So
Clemson and Miami.
The Canes beat Clemson last year, and you lost a tough one against Florida State with the healthy Jordan Travis in that game. So that was with the full complement of FSU, and they played a 4-quarter ball game. And guess what? That was when you guys did
with a backup freshman quarterback.
I was just about to say that was the other thing too. You didn't have your alleged interception throwing Tyler Van Dyke, but also could throw some touchdowns. You had to go with a freshman who had non-experience. So it's like, what is this Miami team going to look like with Tyler Van Dyke gone? Cam Ward comes in. I think he's super special talent. Can he be that guy? Can he be the guy that takes you to that next level?
I think so. The offensive side, you returned with three of your 5 starters at the offensive line, which is probably the strength of the offense. I mean, I could argue that it is the strength of the offense. I mean, the only thing I'm worried about is replacing Matt Lee at center and Zach Carpenter. Anytime you got a new center, a new quarterback, you got to worry about protection changes, picking up blocks, and, just everybody being on the same page. So you got Zach Carpenter, more than likely that's going to be the starter at center. And then you have Pancake Hacho at left guard is what they're projecting. But the other 3 are returning starters. You got Jalen Rivers from Duval on the left side at left tackle.
He's still there. Jeez.
He's still there. This is it. This is it. Yeah, exactly. And you got Big Coop. You got Big Coop at right guard, and then you got the freak at right tackle and Manoa. And then you bring in a Sam Brown at wide receiver to go with Restrepo and Jacoby George, and then you got Isaiah Horton is going to be the guy that's going to replace Kobe Young, the big receiver. I think for Cam Ward is cutting down on his fumbles. He had a big issue with turning the ball over at Washington State, and most of that was just fumbles and just being rushed. But playing behind an offensive line like this, you would think, all right, he's going to have more time playing with those receivers. I mean, he had a great group of receivers at Washington State. So offensively, I think they're going to be good. And then you got the 1-2 running back tandem of Fletcher and Martinez. So the only thing that's going to scare me is Mario is just going to be like, hey, let's just get in heavy sets and just run the ball all game and and be ultra conservative. And that's not college football now. Like, as an offensive lineman, I love that, but that's just not college football today. You got to put points on the board. If you got those Ferraris on the outside, you got to use them. And hopefully Shannon Dawson will come up with a good game plan week in and week out to let Cam Ward cook.
Yeah.
And still be able to run the football.
Yeah, no, I guess the biggest thing I was going to be like, replacing, your departure and receiver with obviously Colby going to Georgia. But, Restrepo coming back was a big thing because he's a 1,000-yard guy. He's been like Mr. Consistent. He's been your, kind of your go-to guy. I think Jacoby George is set up to be big time.
He just got to stay out of trouble. He just has to stay out of trouble off the field. It's been Jacoby's problem.
Yeah, Sam Brown was
definitely personal fouls.
Yeah, no, yeah, for sure. Like I say, Sam Brown was the guy that I was hoping the Gators could get in the mix for. And I guess I don't know if he was ever interested. He was interested out of high school, but in the transfer portal, I'm not sure how interested Florida was versus how interested he was even taking a look at Florida. But he goes to Miami, which I think he could be a big time player. Obviously, we talked about Martinez. Martinez has been basically a 1,000-yard back both the years at Oregon State, and he was Mr. Reliable, Mr. Consistent offense, their bell cow, and I think he can do the same thing. Obviously, you add Mark Fletcher, who looked to be dynamic as well as a true freshman last year. So that's a good 1-2 punch that you got. Your offensive line, like you said, is good. Cam Ward, what's kind of sneaky about Cam Ward is you think just because he's an athletic quarterback, you think he runs a lot, but no, he's one of those guys who doesn't run hardly at all. He's a pocket guy. He stays in there. What he does is he uses his athleticism and his feet to create longer plays in the pocket, to get outside the pocket, to still throw the ball downfield. He started off, at Division I AA or whatever it was, Incarnate or whatever, and just he was in the COVID year and he lit it up his second year there, throwing for almost 4,600 yards and almost 50 touchdowns. So then that was when he hit the portal, headed out to Washington State, and he's basically had back-to-back 3,000-yard, passing seasons where he's, lit it up out in the Pac-12. It's just a little bit of, Washington State doesn't have the best defense usually, and, just has big numbers offensively. And it was, the big question mark was Cam Ward going to go pro? Was he going to go in the portal? Then it was rumored that he was going to go to Miami. Then it came out that he was going to go to the draft, and it was like, okay,
Cam did a little bit of both.
Yeah, he dabbled in and got his, figured out where was he going to be best suited for getting a bag, for getting, drafted. And, he's obviously decided to go down to Coral Gables for a season and get a little bit of cash from the 305 and then play a little ball down in Miami and then see where you are draft next year, which is, hey, that's what I'm saying. These guys are figuring out what's best for them and that they're taking that approach, which is smart. So now, like I say, because the big question I was like, who the heck's the quarterback going to be for a while until he decided to transfer there?
Yeah.
And
that was going to be the big thing. I mean, you lose. I mean, you got the kid Emory Williams coming off an injury, so you weren't sure about him. And then you bring in a Poffenhofer or whatever the kid's name is from a Division II school, I think from Hofstra. And then you lose Ja'Cory Brown. So it was going to be between Ja'Cory Brown and Emory Williams. And then you weren't sure. And then once Cam made a decision to go to Miami, Ja'Cory was like, I'm out. I'm not sitting another year, which is a kid I like, but I don't know if he fit in that Shannon Dawson offense, which is kind of that air raid style, which he has a gun. And I like the kid, but I think he's going to kill it in the Gus Malzahn offense at UCF, to be able to run and, do some trickeration, whatever Gus does with that offense over there. So, I mean, bringing Cam in, that's automatic. Hey, Mario, you better win 9-10 games this year. And on the cusp of possibly making the playoff. And that's just how I see it. I think it's sad to say, going from where Tyler was 3 years ago when Rhett Lashley was at Miami, that he was trending. You wanted him to trend up, but he trended down. He regressed. And I don't know if it's between the ears.
It was kind of crazy.
Injuries or what. I mean, you just don't go from throwing 30 touchdowns to almost throwing 30 picks.
Yeah.
In a 2-year period. So I don't know if defenses just didn't know what he was or he had better receivers. It's like an enigma. No one could figure out. You hear the theories that he was throwing games for gambling. I don't believe that, but and then he's up at Wisconsin and they're making comments about Miami didn't know what they were doing with him. But then you hear stories coming out saying he's not looking good up there either. He has good days and bad days.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see what he does,
Yeah. And then on the other side of the football, it hurts losing 2 starting safeties, especially, guys that put in a lot of time at the university. But I think the strong part of the defense this year is the front 7.
Yeah, no, I think
like
your
8-9 guys at the defensive line.
Your secondary definitely is the question mark going into the year for sure.
Yeah, it's a big question mark. But you bring in,
like you say, a front 7,
the kid from Washington.
Yeah.
Oh, my bad. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying.
Yeah.
Again, you go back to that front 7, which is monstrous. That's where you think about some of the Miami teams, where you're questioning like who's back there. I remember the game back in the swamp where we're like, okay, Florida, Miami, who's going to be the running back? Nobody knew about Willis McGahee yet. Nobody knew who Mo Sykes was. Everybody knew Sean Taylor was, but those corners were kind of new for the Canes that year. And guess what? The front 7 is what made it all happen. Getting to Rex and like being all over them. You get the Mo Sykes 99-yard pick 6. McGahee and Jason Gathers running all over those guys. It was, it was just. But the front is what I remember, going into that game. And just I remember being on the sideline for that game and seeing that front 4, just how big they were. It was just like this front 7 is a freaking monsters. So it's like, can Ruben Bain and those guys, you lose, like I say, a couple of those guys on the D-line, Leonard Taylor, you lose Jackson in the transfer portal, so who steps up to be those monsters on the D line to create that pressure to let those guys in the back end kind of get a little bit of a learning curve, you know?
Yeah, well, you bring in a CJ Clark, transfer defensive tackle. Then you bring in Simon Barrow, defensive tackle. Like you say, you got Ruben Bain, Akeem Mesidor. I know it's foot injuries, foot problems. They've got him padded. Adidas has done something to get him back on the field. So hopefully, and then you bring in Tyler Barron from Tennessee, and then you bring in the kid from Marshall that's played for Lance Guidry at Marshall. So you want to say the front four, they're going to be rotating guys in and out. At linebacker, you got Francisco Mainoa, and then you got Wesley Besaint. But after that is the depth problem at linebacker. Those two guys have to play. Cam Pruitt coming out of the spring into fall camp. Everyone's loved him, a true freshman. And then, like you say, the secondary is going to be the thing. Will a freshman like Zaquan Patterson come out and start right away?
Right.
You got Devontae Brown at one corner and Daryl Porter at the other corner. Will Robert Stafford come out and play? You're like, just so many questions in the secondary where going into a season, playing against a team like Florida, that's going to, they're going to throw the ball. And Billy, hey, whatever anyone has to say about Billy, he's going to dial some plays up and he's going to, and Mertz is going to get some passing yards. So the key will be that front seven. And Lance Guidry is going to bring some exotic blitzes and things like that, but not having those two veterans in the back end to hold up for the most part, where there be blown coverages and blown assignments on the back end is what worries me. Like you say, bringing in the kid from Washington, Powell. Hopefully that helps. That someone that's played in a national championship game that could get everybody in the secondary lined up. You would assume he probably would be the captain of the secondary, to get everybody lined up and giving them their assignments. But I like I say, the front four, I'm excited. I'm excited to watch those guys just get off the ball and make plays. Now, can we stop the run? Week one, hey, your guy got hurt, but it's next man up.
Yeah, no Montreal.
And so you're gonna have to put Jordan Ball and Webb in some positions of, can they block? Because them stepping into that position, they're gonna have to be able to pass block. So will Lance Guidry confuse the young kids and bringing in those blitzes off the edge or up the middle in the front four? Or do we even need the blitz if our front four is getting off? So that's what I'm excited to see.
Yeah, no, that's one thing. Everybody's in Gainesville that I've been talking to, is excited, even with Montreal being out. The running back room, they feel like, is a good room because we've added some guys. Obviously, everybody talks about ETN being gone, but apparently, Jacoby Jackson, the transfer who came in from JUCO, who was from Pensacola Catholic. What's crazy is this kid, he actually played on the 7-on-7 team with us, I don't know, 4 years ago. And I remember everybody talking about, like, this kid's good, like a running back, but he's good at catching and, in the 7-on-7 game. But he also, he went JUCO, and then he's come out and he's like thick, but he can move. And like I say, he's been, one of the talks of camp. So it's like, could he be the starter? Now that Webb obviously is going to get some playing time. Everybody loves Ball. We even have the transfer guy who tore his ACL last year, who transferred in from Tulane, Cam Carroll. He's another guy that they've been talking about. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Gators at that running back spot to compound for the Montreal, injury. But obviously, like I say, the big thing is the Canes, front is going to be good. So that's where the chess match of, can we protect? Can we block it up, to create some time for Mertz to throw it downfield? Can we, block it up to create some run to keep them off balance? Those are all those unknowns that we just got to wait and let it see play out. You're hoping that, like, okay, we're going to be able to block it up, because apparently the big thing too is, like, what does the Gator O line look like right now? Apparently the kid from San Diego State, the transfer right tackle, is not looking too good in pass protection. That's the word on the street, is like, we need the big Cam Waits, the big time, the big huge. He's been banged up, so I don't know if he's going to be back healthy 100% for the Miami game. But basically they're questioning how good we are going to be on the offensive line with this kid from San Diego State. So that's a question mark. Then you don't want to have anybody else go down. You feel pretty good about your center spot, your left tackle, your other guard, but then it's kind of like that right side apparently is the question mark.
Yeah.
So we'll
Well,
have to
and
wait and
I
see.
think
And like again, you don't know until they play it, until they play it.
yeah. And but going into the season, I would say just about every team we play against, maybe than a Florida State, our lines of scrimmage are going to be better than majority of the teams we play. They're just going to be better. Now, will
Yeah.
they come out and play like they are? We know Ruben Bain will, but will those other guys on the defensive line come and play? I mean, I'm not picking too many offensive lines over our offensive line. I'm just not doing that. And that's just, I'm confident in those two groups and their coaches, of those position coaches. It just comes down to how does Shannon Dawson call the game plan, and then Mario's decision making. That's the two biggest questions for me this season is how those coaches go about it this year. Do we come out simple and just keep it simple like last year, or do we get more exotic and run more plays? Like if you're running a bubble screen week 1, like we did all last year, what do you do by week 5, 6, or 7 when teams are like, all right, they're going to run a bubble screen here? Do you run a bubble and go, or get a back pass or something off of that? Does the offense evolve into something more than, man, they just ran the bubble screen 8 times? Like, are we doing
Yeah.
anything else off it other than that? We
I
just
mean, I
ran the
think you
ball 9 times,
yeah, I feel like, this is where Mario's going to make some of those adjustments to
He
be a
has
little bit
to.
more aggressive. And
Mm-hmm.
I think he wants to. I think part of it might have been the first 2 years, you're just not confident and you kind of get conservative, but now you kind of let it kind of hang and just say, let's go, and hopefully they will be more aggressive, more, exotic, more special, and call, plays and not be so conservative, not be so, just run
Predictable.
first and exact predictable, vanilla, all that, because
Yeah.
again, Mario has been in that mindset of he's one of those conservative style coaches, but I've also seen him be somewhat aggressive when he was like at Oregon. And I think it took maybe time to basically have the personnel you're comfortable with to say,
Mm-hmm.
okay, hey, we can do this stuff. So let's do it. So I
Yeah.
think now that raises the question of, okay, if Cam Ward is that guy and you feel comfortable with him, you got some, returning guys at receiver, you feel good about your front, your offensive line, so now, like I say, it's all about now just waiting and seeing, because we could talk about it till we're blue in the face until they go out there, week 1, week 2, week 3, and see what kind of things they're doing that's different. Then we can't say anything, but all you can do is say, let's hope this happens, So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's just one of those
Like you
things.
said, that's why not playing Notre Dame, not playing Clemson, you're not playing NC State,
Yeah,
you're not playing the teams that, a lot of people are saying, oh, they're going to be better this year.
right,
Like
right,
the best team on the schedule is Florida State,
right.
100%. That's the best
Mhm.
team on the schedule.
And
So,
again, that game's not in Doak Campbell either.
right,
So
is at home. I
So,
mean,
like I say, two of your potential tough games, Virginia Tech and Florida State, you get at home. Like
yeah,
I say, week 1 is the enigma game. It's just that one where it's like week
no
1,
one knows.
exactly.
No one has any idea what either team's going to do week 1.
That's why it's funny. I was listening to, I think it was Scott Van Pelt. He was talking about, man, he's like, if there's any game I'd want to be at week 1, it'd be at that game, because there's just so
Mhm.
many variables with it. There's so much on the line that it's going to trend up and down for one of these two teams.
Yeah.
I still feel like, again, you guys are in a better spot than we are. Like we need that win. It's whereas like, yes, you guys need that win too, but in a sense, if you don't get it, it sets up where I think your schedule's still light. We've already talked about what the November slate looks like for the Gators. So you start off 0-1, and then you say, well, you're not winning any games in November. Well, that's 6 losses right there. So
Yeah.
it's like we
It's
need
it's
that
not
win.
it's not good. I mean, we could play the what if game for Mario too. Just say if he does get fired, who do you bring in to replace him? Who's going to sit there and say, "Man, I really want that job"? If they're
Same
treating
thing
their
for
own like that, if
Yeah,
they're
same thing for
treating,
the Gators. Same thing for the
yeah,
Gators. Like, I don't know who the hell we'd hire. Like, who are
yeah.
we going to steal away? Who are we stealing?
The only thing that could possibly happen is if you get a home run hire and they're able to keep a lot of the guys that are there, because Mario has stocked the cupboard full.
No, that's what I'm saying.
He's
You guys had the number 4 recruiting class. You got one of the
well,
top classes already this year. He's hit the portal well. So like the roster is good.
Well, some
You
of the
know,
dumb arguments I've been seeing on different like posts and podcasts is, oh, he's not good. He's running the guys off that he recruited a couple years ago. And it's just like, well, it didn't work out, but he's replacing them with better guys.
yeah.
Like, did I want to see Brashad Smith leave? No. Did I want to see Nigel Kelly leave? And you go down the list, like you say, all those guys that are at SMU, but you replace them with a Sam Brown, you replace them with a Martinez, a Simon Barrow, and a Tyler Barron, who Tennessee did not want to leave. So he's upgraded the roster in those key positions. Like the position that's not upgraded is corner and safety. But that's what happens when you just lose guys that have been there 3-4 years and go into the NFL.
Yeah, well, that's where you hope you recruited well enough
Yeah.
to have some of these young guys play. And that's like I say, I love Zaquan Patterson coming out of Chaminade.
Yeah.
He was a monster. He's another kind of like in the mold of a James Williams and Cam Kitchens. He's kind of big, aggressive.
He's going to be on the field.
Ball hawk. Yeah, you can't keep that guy off the field. So
No.
I would expect to see him play early. Now he's going to take his lump, sure, but again, he's one of those guys who's just going to be a playmaker. So
it's rare to get a guy like a Caleb Downs on the field that's button up X's and O's, and you don't have to worry about them. Like those guys are hard to find,
definitely, and that's why they're rare. So
yeah, that's why he's at Ohio State.
Exactly, he was a baller for Saban his first year, and guess what? Ohio State's probably like, we got a vet up here, a guy patrolling the secondary. So like I say, those guys are rare, and it's kind of like Castile. I've heard Castile looks great right now for the Gators. He was a true freshman who played like 100 snaps last year.
You got to think, but just talking about those guys in the back end of the Florida secondary, when you don't have a vet back there helping you out, their heads just spinning like trying to figure it out. And then you have all these coaches throwing all that eye candy at them. When you're playing a Tennessee team that's splitting their receivers to the sidelines, and you have all this space trying to figure it out one week, and then the next week you have a big guy like KJ Jefferson that's 6'5", 6'4", 6'5", 230 coming full steam at you. You're like, hey man, this guy's way bigger than me. And then the next week you're going against a Georgia where they're just going to line up and just beat everyone for the most part with that big offensive line. So when you got a true freshman back there and they don't have that veteran guy to give them guidance, and you're limiting them to so many snaps a game, and they got to be out there 70, 80 plays a game. What do you expect?
No, for sure. And like I say, that was why I think it was big to get the other Washington transfer, the kid Asa Turner, who played like that safety, kind of like that box, tackler, strong tackler, good, but a decent cover guy. Adding him to the secondary gives that little bit of veteran leadership to now a young newcomer, second year, basically starter in Jordan Castile. And then you have the Jason Marshall 5-star, so like you feel confident. Like, can you get it done? Just be rock solid. Just be solid.
Yeah, but you also need that front four to generate enough pressure to put those quarterbacks in bad situations.
I feel good about our secondary finally, with having some depth back there as well. Like I was talking to Gator Dave the other day, and I was like, what's up with the Oregon kid? Like we got the 6'4" Oregon starting cornerback, and like he's not even starting. It's like, I guess that's a good thing, or is it a bad thing? Is he not good? I mean, but like there's no role for him right now. They're trying to figure out where to put him.
But you bring in competition.
Exactly. And so
bring in competition, and that's what every coach is paid to do these days, and that's why the transfer portal is popping, because every coach is out there trying to upgrade their roster, regardless if they inherited a guy or they brought a guy in. They're going to tell the guy, hey man, you're just not cutting it. We got to move on to the next guy. And only team that's not doing it is Clemson. And we're going to find out a lot about Clemson in the next 2-3 years if he's just continually, hoping that high school kids are going to help out in this transfer world that we live in.
Yeah, no, that's definitely, one that we're watching for Dabo. But yeah, no, the Gator D line, like I said, that's where, you saw where we lost one of our D tackles for the year. Jamari Lyons, the kid from Cocoa, basically had a severe ankle in the scrimmage one last Saturday, and pretty much blew his ankle to smithereens. It's had to have surgery. out for the year. So like he was going to be a guy that they counted on. So the question mark is who's going to replace who on that D line. Like we didn't really lose. Like the guy we lost is Princely, but again, the replacement for Princely is a guy who tore his ACL in camp last year in Boone. So Justice Boone is definitely going to have to be the guy to carry the load.
Yeah.
Can Tyreek Sapp from St. Thomas Aquinas finally be the guy that we're expecting him to be? So all these guys are like, again, this is where it becomes the unknown.
Yeah,
week one is your turn. It's your turn.
Week
so
one,
what are you going to do?
Week one is going to be the line of scrimmage game to me to set up both seasons for both teams. Can your lines of scrimmage protect? Can your lines of scrimmage get to the back, to the quarterback? That's what I mean. I know that's football, but in that week one game when everything is key, and when you're like, we're breaking in Miami, we're breaking in a new quarterback, and then Florida, hey, we got a lot of guys, playing that have to step up because there's no Pearsall. Can the line protect Mertz and give him enough time to get the ball down the field? And I expect a lot of shots, especially from Cam Ward and those guys. You bring in a Sam Brown for that reason. You got an Isaiah Horton for that reason, to take more shots down the field and let's not dink and dunk. And then can you hit him with a big run play off of that? Yeah. So I mean, I'm confident. I'm confident in this season.
Yeah, no. The other thing they've been talking about in Gator Camp is that they're loving the wide receivers right now. The wide receivers are looking good.
I did see that. Yeah.
My boy Burke apparently is shining big time. So like we were hoping that he was going to be that third guy. If it's going to be Eugene Trey Wilson as your number one Percy type player, was the kid Badger from Arizona State going to be that number two? Mm-hmm. So who was going to be that 3 and 4th guy? It was Khalil Jackson was one of the guys, but it's like if it can be Burke, that could be huge, and then apparently they love the Wisconsin kid, DK. So, I mean, apparently Andy Jean is the odd man out right now. He's been hurt. He's, not been playing. So it's like, what's Andy Jean going to do? They love the Maisel kid from Orlando. So it'll be interesting to see if it's all talk or if there's really, are these guys really stepping up?
I think that's coming out of every training camp. I'm sure there's a lot of positives.
DJU's lighting it up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, what you're hoping is Texas A&M losing one of their running backs this weekend, to an injury. I think a lot of coaches are like, hey, let's just get through these scrimmages and let's get to live action, and then can you step up?
Yeah, that's two teams Florida's playing on the schedule. Their starting running backs are out for the year. No starting running back for Texas or Texas A&M when they play. So again, that's always a part of football. Can you get out like football? I saw this morning. Apparently, JJ McCarthy's got a knee scope. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did.
So I know Minnesota was hoping to maybe play him early, but again, getting out of these first couple weeks of camp, getting through those scrimmages, those joint practices, those, just
I mean, Jahmyr
random
Gibbs,
fall
hamstring.
Camp practice. Yeah. So it's like, just get through there so that you can get to that week one. And then, then it's all hell breaks loose. If you get hurt, you get hurt, but at least the season started and you're playing in real games and not, meaningless preseason games or
live
camp
action
practice. Exactly. So, that's always the hard part is just getting through unscathed, but injuries are going to take place. There's going to be more guys that are going to get hurt. So it's just a matter of, like you say, next man up mentality, who steps up and all that. But
no pressure this season, Mario. No pressure whatsoever for you to win 9-10 games. And
you got them going, you got them going over the 9, you got them going for 10, or you got them right at 9. Cause I feel like Vegas has it pegged pretty good. I feel like your question mark games there's like 4 games. It's obviously on the road at Florida week 1. I think on the road at Louisville, Florida State, and then you can throw in one of those other games. Is Virginia Tech going to be a wild card?
You always got to throw in an ACC game.
That's what I'm saying.
It's like the conference that doesn't make any sense still doesn't make any. It wasn't making any sense before the whole Florida State stuff, because week in and week out. I mean, how many years have we seen? Oh, Carolina's going to win the conference, and then next thing you know, there's a 3-way tie in one of the divisions when it was divisions. So I got them going 9-3. Where the 3 games are coming from?
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's
going into the season with still questions. I have them going 9-3. I hope they go over 10. They should go over 10, but I'm gonna be a realist and say 9-3.
Yeah. No. Well, if you're 9-3, that means you're in the ACC
You're in the
championship
picture.
talk.
Yeah, you're in the picture.
You get in that game, you're obviously playoff potentials or all that. So I
Mm-hmm.
feel like it's a 3-team race with Florida State, Clemson, and Miami as your ACC conference championship game, and who's going to win and get in. I've seen some people giving Miami the love that's saying, hey, they're that number 2 team. I think they're going to get in that game. So now it's like you say, it's time to
it's put up or shut
exactly
up.
Put it to bed and let's go.
Yeah, it's basically time for Mario to put up or shut up. It's that year. I think he has to win. You have to win 9-10 games. Anything under 9 wins is unacceptable at this point with all the talent going out of your way to get a Cam Ward and a Damian Martinez. Barring injury, if everyone stays healthy for the most part throughout the season, you have to win 9-10 wins. I could see them winning the ACC, but you got to show me first. I'm not going to be one of those fans saying, hey, oh, we're going to beat this team. We're going to win 10 games or 12 games and win the playoff. No, he has to show me. They have to show me this season for me to believe it.
Yeah, no, I'm with an agreement with you on that. And like I said, I think again, Vegas has got it pegged pretty good. Like I say, I think there's 4 critical games that are going to basically determine whether or not you go over that 10 win threshold. And if you get those, and you're going to go over, and you're going to be in for, I think a good season, and a season where you could be playing for the ACC title, a season where you could be in the mix for the playoffs. So,
well, before we get out of here, the thing that's going to be interesting is just say if they get to that Syracuse game and they're 9-2,
right?
They win the Syracuse game to go 10-2, and they get in the ACC championship game, just say a rematch against a Florida State, or they play Clemson and they lose that game. Do they get in? It's going to be, if you finish 10-3, that's not a bad year per se, and then you might be that odd man out of a 12-team playoff. And then how do the fans feel, and what does their administration say? I mean, you can't be mad.
Yeah, you can't be mad at that. You feel disappointed.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Like if you say that you're a 10-win team, but you miss out because you kind of blew a game late and you get overlooked or over passed up, that it would be, it's hard to argue like you had a 10-win season. That's a successful year, major positive, a couple more wins than you had the year before. And you're right there in that playoff talk. Yes, you made it to the end. So there's a lot of positives in that. So it's like, I think you have to take it and just be like, hey, we were close. Now we got to build upon that the next year. So
now I'm going against my James Franklin analogy of 10-2 gets you nowhere.
Yeah. No, I mean, you got to start somewhere though.
Again, this is a big difference, right?
I'll take
right now, I would have taken the last 5 years of James Franklin at Penn State.
That's what I'm saying. I mean,
if I'm a Penn State fan, I'm tired of 10-2.
Yeah, and like I say, it's the Mark Richt syndrome at Georgia. It's all that, and I guess, but the thing is, it's like the Atlanta Braves thing. It's like, again, a lot of us, it's hard to win the national title.
It is.
What Bama and what Kirby's doing is not. It's not normal, and they've set the precedence of that for the last 10 years. That like that's what you do, and it's like, no, you don't, and it's. All you really want to do, in my opinion, is you just want to be relevant. You want to be in the conversation. You want to be in your conference championship game. You want to win a couple of those, be in the playoff. Now that it's gone from 4 to 12.
Yeah, you just want to be in the playoff and maybe host the playoff game.
Right, and that's the thing. So that's. I will take relevance right now over, what we've had too, and hell, we even had a couple nice seasons with freaking Mullen. We made it to the SEC championship game and banged with a national championship team in Bama.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it could be there, but it can just, again, we live in now the new era of college football where the free agency transfer portal era of your team is different, not only every 3 to 4 years, but literally every
year.
And every year. It's a new age, and it's a new I don't know how good the team is. We'll see how good we are. We gotta wait till
going back to our whole Florida breakdown. That was my thing when you were talking about the standard. of Florida. I get what standards are. Hell, Nebraska used to have a standard.
Yeah.
And that standard is gone. And I think that's going to be for a lot of major blue blood organizations now, is if you don't have the right guy in there, and then you don't get, and you just keep recycling guys, will that standard go back to what it was? Like,
Right.
I think Nebraska thinks that,
well,
the standard is back, with the new coach, new quarterback, and all of that. But it's look at Colorado. Colorado hadn't been relevant in 30 years.
Yeah. Well, like they did it. ESPN did a thing, I think either this week or last, where they talked about like the tiers and like certain programs that how they haven't won in 2 decades. And the two teams, there was 3 teams on that list. It was Nebraska, the Canes, Tennessee, and USC. Like those teams, those are traditional major powers, and they have not won shit in 20 years.
But what's crazy is USC won a title, but they've all won championships in the last 20 years, 25 years.
At least, Tennessee has with Peerless Price and those boys.
Yeah,
and
Miami has.
The Canes, obviously, and then the USC years with Pete.
And then Nebraska won one in 95, 96 with the back-to-back.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show you, like,
and like I say, the Gators are in that mix too, but we haven't won in like a decade, So it's
that decade's come and gone. Like Florida State's been about a decade.
Florida State's right there in that decade too. This is 10 years right here. So
yeah, I mean, as long as you're not like Minnesota, who hasn't won a national championship since the 30s, it's. I mean, Penn State hasn't won one since the 80s. Hell, before Kirby got to Georgia, it was what, 81?
Yeah.
So
sure. And that was like when I was telling you earlier this year, I was like, going back to the Florida, Tennessee, it was like, Tennessee, the Gators have only lost 1 game in Knoxville in the last 20 years.
That's crazy.
It doesn't seem like it.
No.
You got to go all the way back to like when Dallas punched the guy and they made a 50-yard field goal to win the game or something.
Yeah.
Back in like 2000.
So they've won what, two times in the last 20-something years?
Yeah. Well, that was the other thing too. We beat them in Gainesville too. Like Tennessee has not beaten the Florida in like, they're like 2-20 in the last 22 years, something like that.
That's just a mental thing. Because they haven't really been relatively that bad the last 20-something years, other than the Dooley years.
No, and like I say, the same was think about Kentucky. We had beaten Kentucky like 30 straight years, and now all of a sudden we can't beat Kentucky, whether it's in Lexington or the Swamp.
Yeah.
So it's just like
it's just about getting the right guy there, because that was one of my arguments with one of the local guys. He was what we're talking about and saying, oh, teams that like just say he named Miami and USC, and it's just like it's all about getting the right person there. Hell, Bama was a dumpster fire before Nick Saban got there.
Yeah.
And they were a dumpster fire for what? Like 15 years between
Gene Stallings.
Between Gene Stallings and Nick Saban. Yes. They went through what, 4 coaches in 5 years?
Yes. Mike
so Shula, it's just all about getting the right guy there, building a culture, and the big 3, we all hope that we have our guy.
Right.
Florida State thinks Mike's that guy. Some of the Gator contingent thinks Billy is that guy. Does he have enough time? Can he get guys in?
Right.
Can he get to the Lagway years? Canes fans thinks Mario is that guy. So it's just getting that guy, being patient and hoping that they get there. NIL has changed everything for every school.
Everything has gotten changed and accelerated and all that. And like, again, there's no fan bases are, expectations. They don't want to wait for anything. So it's like, you can't get it done, get out of here. But again, I think patience, finding out if Billy is your guy before you pull the trigger, is Mario the guy? Those are the things like we said before. They gave Mike Norvell.
Yeah.
Like I remember the first 2 years of Norvell, like they were like, is this the guy?
Yeah.
So,
but you had to let him get his guys in there. You had to let him get rid of the turds, as they would say, get rid of the turds, bring his guys in, develop his guys and play. Now it helped that you had a Jordan Travis and bringing in the right guys, like a Braden Fisk and a Trey Benson and, Jared Verse, bringing those kind of guys in, Johnny Wilson's and Keon Coleman's helps. So hopefully, our guys could do the same thing, but it's just a wait and see. You can't keep flipping it. I mean, I know there's a ton of money in college football, but not to keep paying coaches.
Yeah.
that
for sure.
30-40 million dollars a clip to go away. Look at Texas A&M. There's no way they could get rid of Mike Elko in the next couple of years. I know they got oil money, but they'll be dumb to get rid of Mike Elko after they're paying Jimbo what, $80 million to go away.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
It's gonna be fun, man. I'm ready. I'm ready for it next week.
Like I say, we've definitely we've broken down the big three. Obviously, next week we'll come to you. We're gonna do a little week 0 action. Obviously, the the Knowles play, in Dublin, Ireland against Georgia Tech. But we'll give you our predictions of who we think's going to win the conferences, where we think who's going to make the playoff, all the way to the Final Four, all the way to who we think is going to win the national title. We'll look
even players to watch this season.
Yeah, we'll give you some players to watch. We'll give you who we think our Heisman contenders are. We'll do all of our teams. We'll do all of our breakdowns of where we think the season will end. Obviously, picking August 23rd, and looking like dumbasses by the time January rolls around. But it's all in good fun, and like I say, we'll probably have a lot of chalk, I would think, but. We'll see if we can mix it up and have a couple sleeper teams that might make a run, at a national championship this season. But like I say, it's fun time. It's rock and roll. Like I say, I did my high school pod with Justin this morning, and we're like, it's high school kickoff classics are all this week. The preseason games are all this Friday. Georgia high school football starts for real this Friday. And then next week is, week 1 of the high school season. So it's always right there, boom, boom, week 1 of the high school season. Then you get week 1 of the college season, week 1 of the NFL, and then we're rolling till February, baby. So, good times.
Where can they check out that podcast if they've made it this far?
They can check out that podcast. I posted it's always I posted on the Facebook page, but you can go to newsforjacks.com, get your podcast where you get your podcast for, the sports section of Varsity 4, and we talk some college, or we talk some high school football, and it's a good time. We're excited about some of these teams in the area for high school football. We've got a couple loaded teams that are definitely state championship worthy. They made it to the state championship last year. Can they get back again, and can they win it this year is the question. Those are Mandarin and St. Aug. They got some boys. They got some dudes on those teams. So we'll have to get out to a high school game this year, Bubby.
We'll check one out.
But come back to us next week for week 0 edition. We'll talk some Knowles. Can they beat the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets across the waterways? And we'll give you breakdowns. Like I say, we appreciate all the listeners and followers. Hit the like bell, subscribe, and give us a shout, give us a holler, and
give us a share.
We appreciate
it with your friends.
Yeah, share it with your friends, man. Ricky, has Ricky even been listening to the podcast, man? He's not giving me no hater, no critiques, no love, no nothing. I gotta get on my boy, but it's all good. And like I say, we'll be back at it next week again. Appreciate y'all. That's it's all about the you.
Let's go.